Hi, and welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be making cheesecake, and this is a special request for viewer Jeanette, who did ask that we do a cheesecake recipe. And the recipe today comes from the McCall's Cookbook, published in 1963 by Random House. And it says here on the cover that it is the absolutely complete step-by-step cooking and serving guide. Now, back in 1963, in April, Lawrence of Arabia was chosen as Best Picture at the 35th Academy Awards. In April of 1963, Martin Luther King Jr. issued his letter from Birmingham jail. In May, Coca-Cola introduced its very first diet drink, Tab, which was sadly for Tab fans discontinued back in 2020. In July, zip codes were introduced to the American public. And in probably the biggest event of 1963, and of course one of the biggest events in American history, John F. Kennedy Jr. was assassinated in Dallas. But on to happier things. In the McCall's Cookbook, we're going to be doing a cheesecake recipe. This is one of those cookbooks that pretty much tells you everything you need to know about being a homemaker, whether you work out of the home or not. I believe that it's probably geared toward the beginner cook, the beginner homemaker who maybe just doesn't know a lot about planning menus and cooking for not only the family but also for social gatherings. So this is one of those. The cookbook has several cheesecake recipes. We're going to be doing McCall's best cheesecake. So let's get started. Cheesecake is one of those recipes that people assume must be really, really difficult to make, but it isn't. It just takes a little bit of time and patience. To make the crust, the recipe calls for 3/4 of a cup graham cracker crumbs, 1 tablespoon of sugar, and 1 tablespoon of melted butter or margarine. Now you can purchase prepared graham cracker crumbs in the grocery store, and all you have to do is measure them out. However, it's a big box, and I don't know when I'm going to be using graham cracker crumbs next. And I thought we'd try to keep this a little more authentic. So I'm following the instructions, which tells me to crush 10 graham crackers in between 2 pieces of wax paper. I remember when I was in elementary school, in first grade, we used to have snack time, and I think pretty much every day we had graham crackers and some sort of fruit punch, probably Hawaiian punch or something like that, sort of thing that would make today's educators squirm, because all they do is talk about making sure you send healthy snacks and lunches to school with your kids. Not that that's not important. We also used to have sing-alongs every Tuesday and Thursday. One of the teachers had an auto harp, and it was a small school, so there were only 2 first grade classes. So my class would go next door into the room with the teacher who had the auto harp, and we'd sing lots of old favorites. It really doesn't take too long to crush 10 graham crackers. The wax paper is a little slippery, however, so just be careful that you don't spill them on the floor. And there we have our 10 graham crackers. Okay, and here is my 3/4 of a cup of graham cracker crumbs, a tablespoon of sugar. I'm going to go ahead and put that in there, and that as well. And my tablespoon of melted butter. Mix that together. Okay. Smells good already. And there's the butter, graham cracker, and sugar mixture. I'm going to pour this into the bottom of my springform pan. You're only going to be coating the bottom of the pan, not the sides. Make sure your hands are nice and clean. If you choose to crush your own graham crackers, 10 is more than sufficient. Just be sure to measure them out after you're done so that you don't have too many. And you want to make sure that the entire bottom of the pan is covered. And that looks pretty good. I'll put that into the refrigerator while we make the filling. And now for the filling. In my standing mixer, I'm going to add 3 8-ounce packages of cream cheese, which has been softened by sitting outside of the refrigerator. If you don't have a standing mixer, obviously you can use a hand mixer in a large mixing bowl. It's important to make sure that you take the cream cheese out of the refrigerator in plenty of time to get softened before you beat it. Otherwise, it'll take a lot longer for you to incorporate it with your other ingredients. So, beat the cream cheese until it's light and fluffy. Okay. Looks pretty light to me. The next step is to add one at a time 4 eggs. Those look pretty well incorporated. Now I'm going to add a cup of sugar. Don't just dump it all in. Sprinkle it in a little bit at a time. You'll want to keep your beater at a medium speed. Cheesecake has been around for centuries. The earliest known mention of it in writing was by Greek physician Aegimus back in the 5th century BC in a book he was writing about making cheesecakes. And finally, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Modern cheesecake, as we know it here in the States, was developed by American William Lawrence back in 1872. He was looking for a way to recreate the soft French Neufchâtel cheese. And in the U.S., the 2 most popular cheesecake varieties are the Chicago and the New York styles. The Chicago is more of a light and fluffy cheesecake, as opposed to the New York style cheesecake, which is a rich, dense, smooth, creamy cake due to the cream cheese base, and that is the type that we're making today. Continue beating until creamy and light. I would say that this is creamy and light. I would say that that is definitely creamy and light. Now we're going to pour it into our pan over the crust. There it is. Put it in your preheated oven, preheated to 375 degrees for 35 minutes. Now this particular recipe calls for a traditional sour cream topping. However, I am choosing to skip the sour cream topping, and instead I'm going to create a cherry glaze for the top of the cheesecake. To make the red cherry glaze for our cheesecake, you'll need 1 can, approximately 1 pound of tart red cherries, sour red cherries. Make sure you grab the ones that are packed in water. You don't want the cherries that you would just pour into a pie shell to make a cherry pie. So you'll need a can of cherries, you'll need 1/4 cup of sugar, a tablespoon of cornstarch, a tablespoon of lemon juice, and 2 drops of red food color. The first step is to drain the cherries, reserving 1/2 cup of the liquid. Okay, so I've drained my cherries right here into my measuring cup, and that is 1/2 cup of liquid. And now I need to set aside 1 cup of cherries. I don't need all of them. Okay. Now in my small saucepan, which I have ready here, we're going to combine 1/4 cup of sugar along with our cornstarch, mix those together. And now it says to add the reserved cherry liquid and stir it until smooth. Transfer it over to the stove. Now I have it on medium heat, and I'm going to continue to stir it and wait for the mixture to come to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, we'll allow it to boil for 1 minute. Okay, the mixture is starting to simmer, and it'll be coming to a boil very quickly. Once it does, we'll allow it to boil for 1 minute. It's already thickening up quite nicely, and the color is a slightly darker red than it was when we started out. Okay, it's been about a minute. It's smooth and thick. I'm going to turn the heat off. We're going to set it back for a bit. And while we're waiting that to cool a little bit, I'm going to get my lemon juice ready. Now I need to add a tablespoon of lemon juice. And the cup of cherries. And 2 drops of red food color. Now, I know some people have a thing about red food color and it's fake and it's bad for you. You could skip this step if you really wanted to. I didn't want to buy the package of all the food colors because I wasn't going to be using them all, but I'll probably use the rest of this bottle of red. So 1 and 2. That's it. Just a teeny bit. And we're going to mix that all thoroughly. It smells great. And we need to allow it to cool thoroughly before we pour it over the top of our cooled cheesecake. So, back in a bit. As you can see, my cheesecake has completely cooled. You need to allow it to cool in the refrigerator for at least 5 hours. Overnight is preferable. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove the outside of the springform pan. You just have to pull it. And ever so gently lift it off. And there you have it. Looks pretty good. And the final step will be to spread the completely cooled cherry topping over the top. And there you have it. Homemade cheesecake with a red cherry glaze topping. And now my official taste tester is going to try a slice of the cheesecake.
Looks very nice. Looks authentic, that bake. The bake. To see that wonderful. It's cheesecake. I think you have something here. Tell someone.
So you'll recommend that our viewers try this recipe at home?
Yes, it's not as sweet as the Jell-O brand cheesecake.
All right, there you have it, folks. Thanks again for joining me here at Pam's Speakeasy. I'm Pam. If you enjoyed this content, you know the drill. Like, subscribe, and make sure you don't miss another video. If you decide to make the cheesecake, let me know how it comes out in the comments. I'll see you on the next video.